Do you wish somebody wrote down the recipe for your parenting challenges? Did you want tips and tricks to become a better mama for you and your babies? I know I do. If you're a mother who feels that you are doing the best you can with the hands you've been dealt, but you're still getting it done, then this podcast is for you. I'm so glad you tuned in to Nailed It Motherhood because we might have the recipe that nobody wrote down. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Nailed It Motherhood podcast. I am your host with the most, Tamara Eldridge. I want to thank all my guests, mamas, papas, grandmas, and the village for listening to Nailed It Motherhood podcast. I was on a break and I heard many questions about when are you going to do another episode? When are you posting another episode? So I thank you all for being excited to come back and hear some more amazing stories about moms who have so many things to share. Dads too. And stay tuned because we have a lot of fun things coming through this next season. I'm very excited to get back to the podcast. It was hashtag self-care for me. So I missed you all. I'm back. And I promise you season 2 is going to crush the game. One thing I really, really want to do with the show is make sure that our parents have a community so that they can come and they can have something to share with other parents. You know, that recipe book that we all talk about, but we don't really open up. We are opening up the recipe book because our parents might have the recipe for you. Listen, even if it means that, I see something in them and I encourage them to tell it to the world. That's kind of what happened with our next guest. She is a true gem for you all today. I have the great pleasure of working in the same department with our next guest. And I saw very early on that she is thorough. In other words, my friend can work. She gets things done. And I think that's why we gel. Am I right?
Yes, I think
She is not only a hard worker professionally, but she's definitely a go-getter in her personal life too. And that includes parenting a very handsome young man. Mamas, papas, grandmas, and the village, I want to introduce to you Shauntae Myrick.
Hello, everyone.
Shauntae, thank you so much for joining us on Nailed It Motherhood podcast. I am very excited that you're going to be here to share your story. It is definitely a different angle that we have not quite heard yet. But I know the person that you are, packed with power, packed with love, packed with purpose. So I know what you have to bring to the table today is going to be very essential to the world of single mothers, of mothers who have a lot of questions that they need answered. So yes, you won't have all the answers, but you probably do have a recipe to put into our recipe book for a lot of parents. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I'm super excited. But before we hear your personal story, we have to go through and tell our top 10. And today's top 10. My beautiful, beautiful baby girl has been asking for a baby brother. She's been praying for a baby brother. And when I say I'll try to pray with her, and when I pray with her, she sometimes gets uncomfortable and doesn't want to pray because she just wants to do her own thing. But when she's ready to pray, it's about what she wants from God. And it's not necessarily the same thing that I want from God. So the first time she prayed, it was time for her to go to sleep. It was one of those nights where she was just up talking all night. Any reason she could to not go to sleep, she found. So she's praying, she's singing, she's calling me. She's like, Mom, Mama. And then she started singing it operatically, Mama. Like it was just all types of theatrics. And when I finally, because I was trying to ignore her, that's what I do when it's time for her to go to sleep. When I finally responded, she said to me, Mom, can you please give me a baby brother for Christmas? And I told her that that's not going to happen. I said, that's cute. I'm happy that you want a baby brother, but that's not how it works. And I don't want to have a baby brother. And she was really, really adamant. So this happened in the fall. Now, let's fast forward a couple months. We won't talk about it for a while. And then she brought it up again. She was asking me about a baby brother. She asked me in the store, super loud, because she knew people were around. And she was like, Mom, can I have a baby brother? So I ignored her. So what she did was she started praying. God, please give my mom a baby brother. Please give my mom a baby brother. I promise. Mommy will be a great mommy. Just make her pregnant so she can have my baby. So, these are just like, I just need her to understand that I'm very, very proud of you. I'm excited that you're praying to God. But your prayer is not one that I want answered. And I'm trying to help her understand that I'm going to need God to be on my side of this one. But the last time she prayed, which is why I decided I needed to share the story, was she really tried to use her authority. She's in the car. She's just doing all kinds of talking. And I kind of hear her, but I'm not really listening. I'm singing really hard. And I hear her pray about her baby brother, so I don't pay it any mind. And then at the end of the prayer, she goes, God, you said it's your command.
Well, all right.
And I looked back at her and I said, where did you get that from? From my brain. My child is like really trying. First of all, I think she's an old church mother coming back to be my mother, my daughter, but really my mother. Yeah. And secondly, we really went there. And she said, God, it's in your command that you will give my mama a baby brother. So thank you so much for listening to my Tavi tale. If you are my real friend, I'm going to ask you to pray on my behalf. I'm one and done. And I would like to keep it that way. So that is my Tavi tale. I would like to kind of segue into the baby brother to Shauntae being a boy mom. And so listeners, it is my time to now give up the floor for Shauntae to share her story and share her personal parenting journey with us all. She is a single mother of a son who is kind, who's sweet. When you just look at him, you could tell like he's a good kid.
Let that look for you.
Well, I know how that feels when parents are like, oh, you're a child this and you're a child that. I know it because you're like, is that the same child that I was with when I brought them to you? I get it. Wholeheartedly. But I want you to be able to tell us what that's like. What is it like raising this young man who is walking into this world as a single mom? And I also want you to kind of explain to us, how you are walking in your purpose because you are doing it with authority. And, you're doing all of these things while also being a single mom. So I'm going to turn my mic off and I'm going to listen and glean from your story.
Okay. The funny thing is he was like crawling on the floor just now, trying not to be in the camera, throwing something away. And he was on the game with his friends. So it's like, Mom, I'm like, y'all can't talk for an hour. I'm about to do this interview because it'll echo. Like you'll hear him on the game. But yeah, so being a mom is it's not easy. I think, some of us do it in style and we make it look good, but it definitely comes with a lot of challenges, especially with being a single mom. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't like pregnancy. I didn't like anything. I didn't like the kid till he went to preschool. Loved him. But looking back now that I'm wiser, because I was 21 when I had Trey, looking back now, I think I may have went through postpartum. But when you're young and I really wasn't aware or paid much attention. I think that's where the disconnect was, and why I was always diving into work or school. And by the time I got Trey at the end of the night, it's time to put him to bed. I always enjoyed dressing him, like those sort of things. But I think I did have postpartum. But while it comes with its challenges, he's really changed my life. And I guess we'll get into that. Prior to Trey, I had a lot going on that were not all like good things. And having him just change my perspective about life in general, because it's different. You can be selfish when it's just you. But once there's like someone that you have to care for the rest of their life and, pass on adulthood, you look at things differently. And honestly, he's my biggest blessing. Sometimes my biggest frustration, because I'm in teenager years now. He's going to be 14 this year. But he's my biggest blessing, and he's my why and the reason why I do so much of what I do. But I guess we're going to kind of jump into my story. So I guess I should kind of start from the beginning a little bit. So young Tay was feisty. When I was little, my great-grandmother, who watched me all the time, she thought I would be a preacher. My grandfather thought, I was going to be a boxer or play tennis like Serena. My aunts used to call me Miracle. I don't know if people remember Miracle, but in the early 90s, there was a preacher. She was like about 9 or 10, and her name was Miracle, and she was like traveling all over the world preaching. And then there was me, who used to spend hours at a time playing school, like literally playing school for hours with imaginary people in my room, my computer. I even learned how to do like a spreadsheet. I was academically inclined. I was like reading the newspaper fluently at 4.5, 5. So of course it was just like, Tay's going to be this, Tay's going to be that. And as I sit back and I think, I'm like, I felt like everybody was trying to tell me what I was going to be. I know that there was an essence about me. There was something different about me. I always knew there was something special about me. And I was reminded that a lot. But I just wasn't sure of exactly what it is I wanted to be. But I knew whatever I did, and now that I look back, everything that people were saying that I was going to do was kind of ministry. So I feel like, I'm right aligned with ministry as far as mentoring, violence prevention in the communities, being an activist in my community, working in Pittsburgh Public Schools out of the equity office, and doing these different things. I know that this is ministry, and I'm truly walking in the purpose that I believe God had for me. And I'm still moving. But back then, growing up was great. I came from the most loving family. I mean, like, literally, we had family day every Sunday. And a lot of people were like, wait, you see your great uncles and aunts every week? And I'm like, yes, you know what I mean? Now, I was an only child. My mom and all her sisters had one kid. So I have, first cousins. We grew up like siblings because our moms are extremely close. They shared the same mom and dad. But early on, I started noticing different things. Like I was a brown girl. I was chocolate. And I'll never forget always getting a stigma like, you're pretty to be dark skinned. And I never understood why people would say that. And I don't think that it necessarily, crushed my self-esteem any, because I came from a chocolate family, and my grandfather and his brothers, I mean, they were just like praising, like, oh, you were so beautiful, like to me and my cousins. So, but it was a thing that kind of bothered me. And I'll never forget in second grade, and back then, I feel like brown girls have a stance now, but back then it was kind of like light-skinned girls were kind of like the it girl at that time. You know what I mean? And I remember my second grade teacher had asked me, was I mixed with anything? Her name was Frau Krantz, second grade teacher, Manchester Elementary. I don't know if Frau Krantz is out there, but Frau Krantz. And she said, "Are you mixed with anything?" And I'm like, "Mixed?" She's like, "Are you of any other descendant? Like, are you, how we have some students in here who are German?" And I'm like, "No." And she was like, "You just have very small features. Like, you look at your nose." And I couldn't believe that lady said that to me. Now, when I'm young, I didn't really understand it. But then as I got older, I started paying attention to noses everywhere I went. And I noticed, like, my mom's family, like, they had, like, large noses. And I'm like, so what was this lady trying to say? Anyway, as I got older, it was racist. It was extremely racist. It was kind of saying that colored people could not be beautiful. Like, if they were, they had to be mixed with some kind of other descent. And then, I grew up in Manchester, grew up with a single mom. The struggle was real. We lived in the projects. Had to go back and live with my grandma because my mom couldn't afford to pay rent, even in subsidized housing. It was rough. Growing up was rough, but there was still, like, so much love there. There's nothing that I would change about it. I think, a lot of the things that I watched my mom endure, those crying moments in her room and, like, her not even understanding what's going on and trying to figure it out, is really what made me who I am today. And I think that's where I get the hustle and bustle from, because for me, I feel like my mom was just, like, always okay with settling. And I don't want to say settling in that way, but, like, just enough. And I felt like she had so much more potential, but I don't really think, I don't know if it was that she didn't see it or she just fell so deep that she didn't even realize it. So we were living in these projects. I'll never forget, we was living in these projects up Spring Hill. It was rough. I mean, back in the day, there was good people living in these homes, but I'll never forget, like, our building was so dirty. It was so dirty. So my mom would get up every Saturday and mop the entire building front to back every Saturday. She's like, I mean, this is our home and we got to walk through here. And I don't want us having to walk through, it being dirty and things like that. Coming up in the German magnet program, I eventually left Manchester and went to London. And then I went to Frick International Studies. There, I met some of the most amazing people at Frick International Studies. And that was the first place where I seen so many Black educators. It was the first time that I had, other than kindergarten, that I had a Black teacher. The first Black female math teacher that I had. The first Black male science teacher that I had. And that exposure was crucial for me at that influential time to see, like, oh, okay, like, Black people can teach, Black people are doing things. And it was just really, like, a wonderful environment through and through. And I can talk days about, what that school was to me and how it helped me, and how even when I fell off, there were things that I learned there that I were able to pick back up on later in life. So I went there 6th through 8th grade. 9th grade. 9th grade is where it got rough. 9th grade is when I began to rebel. 9th grade was when I wasn't just impressionable, but I also wanted to do the things that I was seeing being done. I wanted to make money. There were just certain things I would just look at my mom and I was just like, I didn't want this for myself. Looking back, unknowingly, I feel like I grew up in an area where we were being groomed very early on. And when I say we were being groomed, I felt that we were being groomed to date street men, date guys who were in the streets and, into street activities. And that's all we seen and that's what we knew. So that's what we were attracted to. And that was what we were attracting, so to speak. And at the age of 16, I started dating a guy that was much older than me. And again, even looking back, I think everything that I did pretty much was kind of like a survival tactic in a sense. Maybe looking for, my dad in men. My dad got indicted when I was in 6th grade, federal indictment. He came home when I was in 10th going to 11, but there was still a gap and a disconnect. You know, he's gone when I'm 11. When he comes back, I'm not the same, you know, little girl that he left. And he was in the street, so he didn't really have, you know, a lot of time. Me and my dad are very, very close now. That's my bestie. I don't, you know, hold that against him. I went through a period of being angry and upset, but, you know, now I'm just kind of like moving forward. But I say that to say because I think that a lot of what held me back was those relationships and relationships with men that, you know, just were not healthy, were not good, and really didn't serve me in a good way. And to, you know, like, to be totally honest, I don't think I served a good purpose in a lot of those situations. And I can admit that in a lot of them, from being, you know, broken and dealing with trauma, that I probably was the problem in some, you know, relationships that I had. I did, you know, begin to get involved into some things that I won't go too deep on here on about it, but, you know, like, it was kind of one of those things like sink or swim, you know, and I decided that I didn't want to be the girl that dated a guy with money. I wanted to be the girl that actually had some money. And that led me to other things. And while it was profitable and things like that, and I just wanted to be able, I didn't want to become my mom. I think my biggest fear was like, I don't want to become a mom. I don't want to be like, I don't want to settle. I don't want this for me. I want better. And while my mom was a good mom, like, she was very structured. She didn't play about schoolwork and things like that. It was like the other part, to just want more for herself, want more for me and her, just wanting us to have a better life. And because of that is how I ended up in a lot of situations. And, you know, when you're making money and you're still in school, now you're missing school to make money, you know, or you dating a guy with money and you missing school because you're too young to be dating them and you don't want them with nobody else. It was a lot of different things. As smart as I was, it was like school was no longer an importance to me. And because of that, I didn't finish school on time. I ended up having to go back to school to get my diploma and everything like that. And then I want to say 2008, around 2008, 2009, a lot of people started dying. People that I were close to, they were getting killed. Different things were happening in the streets. And it was becoming to be dangerous. You know, it was dangerous. It was grimy. You know, knowing things and not ever being able to speak about it ever. Those things were, I think it started to play on my conscience, and I had to find a way to work through that. So fast forward, I ended up going back to school, and I decided, like, okay, at first I was like, I'm gonna go to school for criminal science. Why I wanted to be like CSI Miami and do autopsies and work on dead bodies, I don't know. That was my first thing. That was like my first thing. And then I said, you know what? No, I want to work with juveniles. I want to work with kids. And because I feel like if you're working with adults who are already like kind of criminals, and I'm not saying I don't believe in people restoring themselves, but my thing was like, how do we catch them before that? Like at the cusp, right? And I'll never forget, my advisor was like, you're not going to make no money working with kids. Do you want to spend all this money on, you know, a degree, and you're not going to make no money working with kids? And I was like, as discouraging as I was like, for me, it no longer was about like money. I was like, okay, if I follow my passion, the money will find me. Like, I want to work with kids. I was doing an externship, and I created my own externship, and they let me do it. And I went to Dr. Walters. He was the principal at Obama at this time. When it became Obama, when they had just moved to Peabody. And I asked him, I said, hey, I want to do a 12-week program with some girls, like Friday Focus, because they were still doing Friday Focus, which was something that they did when I went to Frick, because majority of our students left for gifted. on Fridays. And he said, yes, you can do it. And I did it for 12 weeks. And I loved it so much. And so then after that, I kind of jumped into the nonprofit world. Well, the nonprofit world kind of found me. And I started working with kids at after school programming and working with at-risk youth. And they were right. I wasn't making no money. I think I was making $9 an hour. I ended up getting pregnant with Trey, 20. During that time when I met him, I had a guy friend who, I had been dating for some time, and he was murdered. He was murdered on Valentine's Day of 2010, February 14, 2010. He was turning 21, and he got killed on Valentine's Day, and his birthday was on Valentine's Day. So he got killed like at 2 a.m. on his birthday. So I was in a very vulnerable state at that time, like losing a lot of people. And me and Trey's dad started, talking and dating, and everything happened so fast with that. Like I was in a very vulnerable state. And before I know it, come November, like we dated for a little bit. Now we're like together every day. And then I'm pregnant with Trey. Right. And I was blessed because he was a stand-up kind of guy. Like he was excited. He had the same type of family dynamic that I had. They were very close, close-knit family. And so then Trey came. But while I was pregnant with Trey, like my close family knew, but I didn't want to take pictures. I didn't want to go outside. Not to mention I was extremely sick. But I was like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I having a kid? Like it went through my head all the time. Like, what is it? I don't know. He's definitely supposed to be here. But, when I had him, then there was that disconnect. And then also the love that I had, that relationship was really a relationship that was based on the fact that we shared a kid together. But we weren't friends. And having a friend in a relationship is important. Like, you want to be friends too. So while we were together, we were both young. We were in our early 20s, and he was such a good dad. He got up in the middle of the night when Trey would cry. There was a disconnect. Like I remember they told me I had to carry Trey upstairs when I had him. And I was like, I don't want to. They're like, oh, no, you have to carry him up. And I'm telling his godmom, who's my cousin, we're like sisters. I'm telling her, I'm like, no, she can carry him. And they're like, no, it's a liability thing. You have to carry your baby. Like when they wheel you up in a wheelchair, you have to carry your own baby upstairs. And I remember they was like, are you want him to sleep in the room? I was like, oh, no, just take him to the nursery. I'm like, take him to the nursery. And I remember being up. It might have been like 2, 3 in the morning. And this is the time that I was used to being up because this is the time he would do a lot of moving when I was pregnant. And I had like called, like, can y'all bring him? And they took long and I went down there and I got him myself. And I'll never forget, me and him, we were sitting in the bed and we were up and I was just looking down at him and I was like, I don't know, maybe you might not be so bad. I'm like looking and we had like a little moment. And when we got discharged, I'll never forget, he got weighed. So babies normally lose weight when they leave the hospital. The nurse came out like, I don't know, this one's something special. He gained weight. That's not normal. And I was like, oh, okay. But then there was still that disconnect. Fast forward, me and Trey's dad, it got to be toxic. There was a lot of cheating and infidelities and stuff like that. Again, we're young, but it wasn't just him. It was me too, because I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't ready. It was too much for me to be in a relationship, be a mom. It was too much. We ended up getting into a situation where he wasn't a man about the situation. And he let something happened to me, basically, so he didn't have to be, incarcerated. And for me, in any relationship, it's like I could forgive people for a lot of things, but I have never in my life re-respected anybody. there's no respect for me. So that relationship never really was able to be mendable again after that, because once the respect is gone, it's just gone. And so I went through another series of things and revisiting old things from my past, meeting new people, etc. I guess we're going to get to the fact that I did get married on my lunch break. So I met someone, and it was like he was like the perfect person, right? He was God-fearing, he had, been like, grew up kind of like how I grew up. He was an only child, growing up in the hood, experiencing different things. And he was like trying to, he was getting back in the groove of things, just trying to, build like a life, a positive life, a structured life. And he had children, and he would send me like little scripture quotes every morning. And I'm like, this is exactly, God, this is what I needed, right? And he was that way, and he was like, let's get married tomorrow. And I remember laughing like, what? Because I thought he was joking. And he's like, no, I mean, like, seriously, like, let's get married tomorrow. Like, I want to be married to you. Like, I know that, like, you're going to be my wife. I want you to be my wife. And I was just like laughing it off. But then I realized, like, oh, you're serious. You really want to get married. And so we didn't talk about it. And then he would just always bring it up. So, he's like, could you look into it and like see? And I was like, okay. And I looked into it, and I seen like, you have to apply for a marriage license and, all of this stuff. So we applied, he was like on me about it. We applied for a license, but I'm like, all right, this is not going to happen, really. We applied for the license, and I remember it was like, you had like 90 days or something like that to go down there to, finish the rest of the stuff. And we like got to the cuff, and I remember I got like a little reminder thing, and I was like, hey, we kind of got this thing. And he's like, I was like, but we ain't gonna make it, because he got off of work. He worked at the mill. When he got off work, he's like, no, we'll make it. Like, we're gonna get down there. And I remember being so nervous going into there, where we went and like signed, like we could go, like to a magistrate. And then we had like a certain amount of time before we could go to the magistrate. And I remember like once we left, I was just like, God, if this is not for me, please give me like some type of sign. And I had got pregnant, I want to say like around March of that year, March, April. It was like around Easter. And I decided not to go forward with the pregnancy. I didn't feel right about it. So I decided not to go through with the pregnancy. Did it like have a wedge, create a wedge between us? Maybe. He definitely, felt some type of way about it, but I just didn't feel like that was for me at that time. And I was also in a space, I was rebuilding. He's rebuilding, I'm rebuilding, and then now we're rebuilding. So anyway, the day comes and I'm at work. At this time, I'm a character coach at King. And I tell, who's like one of my good friends now, Miss McKenna, so I have to take an early lunch break today. And she was like, okay. So then I go, and I'm there for a long period of time. Like I'm gone for like an hour and a half on my lunch break. And so I come back, and she says, and at this time I'm contracted. I don't actually work for the board. We're just contracted in the school. So I come back, and she said, where did you go? And I was like, oh, I got married. And she was like, she started laughing, because I will always say stuff. And this is the thing about me. I say stuff and people laugh, but I be dead serious most of the time. And people be thinking I'm like joking. I'm like, no, I'm not joking. And she said, no, seriously, like you really got married. Well, who was there? I said, oh, nobody. It was 2 officers and a judge. She said, so you didn't have any witnesses? I said, 2 officers and a judge. That's who was there. That was the witness. I didn't tell my mother. I told nobody in my family. And that alone was not like me. I didn't even have a conversation with my child. That was not like me, because I'm very family oriented. In the moment I got married, all the red flags started flagging. I mean, like, like one, there's like a physical altercation that happened. It was like a Lifetime movie, I promise you. And I'm not going to say that things were always all bad, but there's certain things you can't really like. okay, I can't get past this. You know what I mean? And again, infidelities, not on my end, but infidelities. And he had children, and he had multiple children with different women. And even that alone was a lot. You know what I mean? I didn't think it was going to be so heavy, but just that alone was a lot. And then, also deciding to continue to sleep with your kids' mom. That how can any, like co-parenting or blended family thrive through that? It's not possible. And I went through a very dark time in that marriage. I don't even know who I was. I even now when I get memories like the memories that pop up in my picture, how I looked. I mean that marriage was doing me in so bad. I started experiencing acne. I had never had acne in my life. Never. I had acne. I was small. I didn't have that light about me. I distanced myself from my entire family. And it was like horrible. And I'll never forget when I turned 30, my cousin was here because it's like around COVID, and I'm turning 30. And my cousin they were giving me like a surprise little dinner at Bar Louie down in North Shore. And I'll never forget, like, he fought me like right before I had to go to this dinner. And he went with me. And he fought me really, really bad. And I had to go and get my makeup done. And it took me 3 hours to get my makeup done because while she was doing my makeup, I could not stop crying. Like, I just kept crying, so she had to keep starting over. And then it was so bad, she was crying. So I don't want to cry now, but it was very hard. And then, like, it was affecting my kid too. So I still continued. I stayed in the situation. And then it was 2021. We had another incident, and I caught him somewhere. I was like, you gotta go. You gotta go. You gotta go. But that was like the first time I kind of like regained my like oomph back because, I ain't never been like no slouching or even the type of person to let anyone walk over me. So even that within itself, like me not speaking up and just sitting there going through something like that was just so not like me. But I felt like I'm married. I got to figure this out. It got to work. This is for better or worse. You know what I mean? Something happened. He got COVID or something like that, and he came back home. But it was never the same. I never looked at him the same. It just wasn't the same. But this time, I was like standing on my 10, right? I'm standing on my 10, and I'm like, yeah, no. I ain't about to deal with this. My cousin was getting married. Remember, it was the year my cousin's getting married and everything, and I'm doing like her bridal shower. But there was something in me where it wasn't there anymore. And women, we mentally leave a situation before we physically do. So mentally, I was gone. Physically, I was still there. And I think a lot of it was stability, having someone that's, helping you with bills and, all the things and reasons that women stay in situations that are not good. And it was, I want to say what is it, 2025? So November of 2022, we had gotten to a disagreement and we parted ways the day of my friend's brother's funeral. Like there was like at one point, like his grandmother passed and we were like keeping communication, but after that, I was just like, no. And never once did I stress like how I'm gonna pay this, and I think it was like a coward move because it was like I had a situation with my cars. I didn't have a car. So I felt like he like tried to leave me where it's like, oh, you need me sort of thing. No, I don't. I don't need you. I need me and God and that alone. And I never stress. And when I tell you, the moment I literally walked away from that situation, every blessing there is start pouring on me. And those were already my blessings. All these things were already going to happen, but they were not going to happen if I was in that situation. They weren't going to happen. And that's like my biggest advice to people. If the flag is red, it's red. If he puts his hands on you or do anything to disrespect you, it does not get better. It won't get better. It'll get worse the next time. And I interviewed for the job out of the Office of Equity, and then they called me. Before that, they had called me for, to do some outreach work with violence prevention. I did some other business moves and started some things of my own, and God is still blessing me, like literally every day. The biggest thing that was probably the hardest for me is that I realized that my son went 5 years without a mom. While I was physically there and still doing the things that I always did, mentally I was not there. I was not myself. So for 5 years, he's just figuring it out. No parent, His father was sentenced to 21 years in prison, unfortunately, for, not for murder or anything like that, but, if you get in trouble so many times, they have what's called career criminal. So it could be small, 3 little things that you did that you pleaded out to a felony, and now it's your 3rd strike. So that's just what it is. And he was a really, really good dad. He was active. He coached him, in football and things like that. But as women, I think we don't realize how much what we go through affects our kids. I remember being so angry as a child, and I was angry because my mother was so angry and bitter, and she sent me out in the world with her energy. And my baby was going out in the world feeling broken, but not even sure. Hearing fights and not being able to help your mom. Could you imagine being a boy and someone's doing something to your mom and there's nothing you can do? How that might affect him, how he was showing up at school and places, not wanting to be home. He went through a period where he kind of lived at my mom's because he didn't want to be there. And so that part was the hardest for me. Now, do I feel like, the guy that I decided to marry was a bad person? The guy that was presented to me was not a bad person. And I think that there is a good person. I just don't think he's my person. Period. Now I am happy. I am very happy. I feel, I feel very free. And my main focus is just being a mom and thriving in my career. Being a boy mom has its challenges. My son's a quarterback. He's been playing quarterback since he was 4. Sports is a male dominant space. And it's hard because, most of the time it's a lot of dads and, things like that. And Trey's a Leo, so he's so emotional. He's just, but he's a great, great kid too. He makes good grades. It's not easy. I still cry in the shower. And then I'm an OG when I get out, because I tell people all the time, like, even in my professional life, I go into the school, everyone knows, like, I'm not to be professional, but the G in me, I'm from Manchester. It sits right here all the time. All the time. I'm at a stage now where I'm learning how to balance the patience part. I work with kids during the day and I have patience for my students. I come home and I don't have patience for my own child. That's hard. Trying to learn how to nurture him having a voice without silencing him. Giving him that space to be able to say whatever it is he feels he needs to say. But knowing when to say it and how. The thing about having a son is that you can't teach him how to be a man. That I can't do. That's the hardest part about raising a young man on your own. He had a breakdown moment. We were in Target and he said, Mom, you always tell me, like, I shouldn't be doing that. Like, boys don't do that. It's like, but you got to remember, like, Mom, I've been around all women all my life. I don't know. And he knows, like, I'm like a tomboy at heart. You know what I mean? But He'll say, I know I get like the best of both worlds with you. I know like how you are. But I still don't have a male figure that I'm around all the time. And that's hard for me because my mom used to say, my grandmother said, the biggest decision that you make for your child is the person that you choose to have them with. And a part of me, like, did I mess up? Did I do something wrong? And then I remember, like, no, like, his dad was a great dad. Like, I didn't choose wrong. Life just happened. But that's one of the reasons why my biggest preach to young girls is that everything that boys do, men do, is to impress women and girls. So I tell them, like, if y'all can change the narrative of who you want and who you desire to be with, then we'll change the narrative of who our Black men become. They will change for you. If you say, I don't want to date nobody that smoke weed. I don't want to date nobody that want to run around here with a firearm and a gun or be in a rap video acting like he's popping pills and doing drugs. If y'all say that ain't what I want, they'll stop becoming that. We didn't know no better because we could have changed it then. I was already being groomed to deal with street guys. And I tell them all the time, every guy that I've dealt with that was in the street is dead or in jail now. I don't have one success story for any of you. We lose kids in the schools and these young girls, they sitting there crying and they all making posts. And I'm like, this got to stop. This can't be the norm. How do we change that? I'm raising a Black man. I don't want my son to think he got to go out and carry a firearm to impress a Black girl. And then a lot of times that's how our good Black men end up with other races. I mean, let's be honest. Because when you're too good, you're lame, right? So that has been my biggest push with working with young women. We got to change the narrative. How are we going to change our Black men? How are we going to build them up? Because we run everything. We just let them think that they run these things. We let men think that they're in control, but we run everything. So through and through, and of course my life story has lots of layers. That's just it in a nutshell. Most people say, will you get married again? Absolutely. Yes, I'm going to do it right this time. I'm going to have a wedding. I'm going to invite you. I'm going to have a wedding. And I'm absolutely going to love again because I love love. I think love is a beautiful thing. And I honestly, people say, are you dating again? Yes. Absolutely. So, now I'm in a space where I am dating. I'm seeing someone that was in my life a while ago. We didn't live in the same state. And I've always felt like that person was my person, but we didn't live in the same state. They were from Maryland. I'm from Pittsburgh. I have a life here. And then I had other personal things that kind of interfered with that. So it was great that we were able to reconnect. And we're really good friends too, which makes it so much sweeter. And I vow to not date any man that has multiple children. No disrespect to the dads out there. You got multiple kids, spread it around. That ain't for me. So he does have one child, same age as Trey. He has a daughter, and that works because I can't do all them different DNAs. I'm not. And I can't do it. I'm not doing it. It ain't for me. Somebody might be strong enough, but
it's certainly not.
It's not for me.
Certainly.
So that's just kind of where I am. And now I'm, trying to create health and wealth because I really would like to stop working full time when after Trey's first year of college, going into his second year. Because I'm thinking in his second year, he should probably start if we're still doing football. But that's my plan. So that's just kind of where I am in a nutshell.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I'm not going to lie. There were points where I was a little emotional. Well, I'm glad I wasn't on the stage so you could see that. But you poured out your heart into your personal story, and you actually answered a lot of the questions that I had. That mindful inquiry piece where you just listen, and the answer might actually come out later down the line. I did want to, first of all, there are 2 points that I wanted to point out because both you and I are at different levels of taking a class to become facilitators for a diversity class. And a part of what you shared was your racial autobiography. And I just thought it was really important to see how race in your life played a part in the decisions that you made, and even further led to who you are now in the role that you're playing, and how you are able to relate to youth and yourself. I thought that was an excellent use of your racial autobiography to spell out key points in your life where your mother struggled, even though you may have felt that she didn't have to. And because she struggled, you didn't want that struggle for your life, which wrote the narrative for how you functioned in your life and how you said that the streets were grooming you. I don't really have questions around it, but I appreciate that you were vulnerable with us as listeners, because many of the guests on my show are Black so far. I'm not saying that I'm only having Black guests, but right now that's my connection. Those are the people that I live with outside of work, outside of my home. So those are the people that, I have a relationship with. But because my guests are Black, a lot of my listeners are Black. And a lot of my listeners have come from backgrounds that are very similar to you. And it's always crucial to understand why you got where you were. Why did you make the decisions that you made? You can usually trace it back to something. And we're very, very much alike in a lot of ways. And I already knew that, but listening to you talk, we are a lot more alike than I knew. And I think that's why I got it. I think that's the one thing you said, and it resonated very, very deeply with me. So I do have a question about this. You said you have patience for kids at work, and then you come home and you don't have patience for your kid. And then you went on to say that you needed to figure out how to nurture your son's voice without silencing. That was a hurt piece because that's something that I'm working with. I have a 5-year-old mouth. And she's bright, she's witty, she's quick, and I carry a lot of my stress home. And exactly what you said, it was me. So I'm interested in the strategies that you have learned or are learning to kind of open that doorway to building a better relationship with yourself.
So it's everyday battle, trying to figure that out. What that looks like depends on the, like the situation. Also identifying that my child needed therapy, he's grieving. And even though this person is not literally gone, they're gone for him. And I'm learning to apologize. That was that nice, Mom. You're right. I'm sorry. That was not. And it's just hard. And because my role is to be an advocate and to teach kids how to advocate. So I can't silence my kid for advocating, but I can discipline you when you just ain't doing right. You know what I mean? When you're taking advantage of it. I think the balance is making sure that you're having self-care. At some point in the day, you have to do something. If it's your car ride home and you're listening to your favorite podcast or your favorite genre of music, every day, whether it's during lunchtime, at some point of the day, you have to give yourself that self-love time before you enter that new role at home. Because see, unfortunately for moms, You don't get to take off being a mom. When you sick, call off work. There's a button you can click and you get to call off. There's no such thing with being a parent. So we have to find that call off button during the day to just take a minute and regroup. And whatever that is or whatever it looks like for, you. Mine is music. Music can always shift me. And I take time for myself to do things I like to do, whether it's coming home, pour me a glass of wine, unwinding, and then dealing with everything else. But you have to do some type of self-care during the day. Like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, fine. There's no prioritize yourself. There's no such thing as there was no time for you to do something for you. And you have to as a parent, or you're going to be burnt out. And that's how a lot of us go home. We put so much into our work that we get home and we're burnt out. And unfortunately, this kid that's at home is happy to see you. So you don't get to be burnt out. But teaching your kids early on, like, mom needs a calming moment. Hold on, give me 1 second. I just need 15, 20 minutes for that regroup. And then they understand it because what they start asking as soon as you're getting on their nerves? Now they need a moment. She'll start saying, Mom, I need a calming moment. She might say that before she's going to bed because she don't want to go. Well, I think I need a calming moment for 20 minutes.
Well, you better calm yourself in the bed.
That's that exchange where we're teaching them self-love. Yeah. My biggest thing when I had to leave that relationship, I tell people all the time, if I didn't have a child, I probably would have stayed longer. Because for some women, for some reason, we're groomed to embrace a struggle. Not every struggle needs to be embraced. Some struggles need to be clipped, cut, and canceled. You feel what I'm saying? But we're groomed like that, to be strong and to. I'm raising a young man, and what was going to happen was if he continued to see another man disrespect me, he was going to think it was okay for him to do it too. Oh, you ain't say that to him because he's getting older, and then he'll go and be that same type of man. I couldn't teach my son to be that type of young man. But I can't have him embarrassing me, and they your mother ain't teach you nothing. So for me, that was my once Trey's looking different, I'm this enough. Because they start getting bigger. They get bigger, then they looking over you, then they think, ain't none of that. So I said, you know what? I had to do that for him and to show him that I also know how to love on myself. I can take care of myself, me and God, real tight, And even just being on a spiritual journey, my woman's Bible teaches me everything. I wish I would have had that Bible at 19 and would have been wise enough to dive into it. But I grew up in a church. I was in church plays. I sang. I'll never forget my aunt was going to whoop me because we had a children's prayer. Might have been a Mother's Day. We all went to church together at my grandmother's church, New Zion in Manchester. And they had children's prayer and they passed around the mic. And I got on the mic and I said, and I just want to pray for my whole family. I just want everybody to stop selling drugs. I'm 4. So my aunt came up on the side get off the mic. Get off the mic. And you better not be talking about me. And I'm and my grandma down there having the Holy Ghost, she yes, baby. My great grandmother, yes. So, again, that voice, I've always had that. That's for sure. But again, just taking that time for yourself.
I appreciate that. I will be replaying that advice over and over again when I edit, but also I will be replaying it because it's great. So I think we don't have a lot of time to ask a lot of questions, and a lot of my questions are probably offline questions anyway, and some key points. But I do feel like it is important for me to say on this platform, Shauntae is the first person who spoke of her experience of a pregnancy that she chose not to carry through. And this is not a place for any of my listeners to take a stance politically. I won't have it on my platform because I believe in choice. I believe in choice. And there was something that was speaking to Shauntae, which told her, yeah, so we're going to let her be great. And we're going to keep it moving because God worked out her life the way it was supposed to be worked out. So, with that being said, we are going to move forward to tea time. Yay! So, tea time is a game of rapid. I've come up with a couple questions, about 15, 16. Some are deep, some of them are just for fun. And in this game, Shauntae will have 3 minutes, if I can find my phone. Where did I put it? Oh, it's right here. If I can find my phone. Okay, so Shauntae will have 3 minutes to answer as many questions as she can to let us all get a little bit more insight into who she is. So I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock.
I don't know what the questions are.
You don't know what the questions are. So the questions are just basic personal questions, but not too deep, some of them. Shauntae was not giving these questions, and I am not giving questions in advance in season 2 in case you do want to be a guest. You're just going to have to be surprised or listen to the podcast. All right, Shauntae, are you ready to play?
Yeah,
All right, listener, are you ready? Yeah. Let's get started. First question. What pet peeve will you never get over?
I don't like when people talk soon as they wake up. I just need a few minutes to unthaw. And I need you to have a few minutes to unthaw too. Like, just to wake up and just start talking is just crazy.
I like that. Which emoji do you use the most?
The horse sign.
Ooh. If you could instantly master any skill, what would it be?
If I can instantly fly a plane.
What is your hidden talent?
My hidden talent, I'm a very good cook. I am a very, very good cook. I don't know if it's hidden because like my family knows. But I'm a very good cook.
Okay, I'll take a plate. Morning person or night owl?
Morning. Like, I don't really like to get up, but I'm a person that likes to get things done. So I'd rather have them done because I'm a professional napper. It's funny, my boyfriend's like, why do you always, I'm like, you want to take a nap? Like, let's have a date to take a nap. And he's like, who takes that? We take nap. You gonna take one and I'm gonna take one. And it's funny because now he takes a lot of naps.
There you go. What's the most ridiculous fear you've ever had?
Ridiculous fee?
Fear.
Fear? Ridiculous fear? I hate bugs. Like, and it has gotten worse over time. Like, I don't know. I don't remember hating bugs like that. Like, I think I enjoyed playing like in the dirt as a kid, but like now that I'm older, I do not like bugs, and I don't like roller coasters anymore either. And I love those as a kid.
Yeah, I changed on that one too. This will be the last question. We have 20 seconds. Name one book, podcast, or resource that's changed your perspective.
Women's Bible.
I knew you were going to say that, so I'm pulling another one. What's the best gift you ever received?
The best? It would have to be my Bible.
Yes.
I think that was like the best gift that I have received. Yeah. It had to be.
I remember whenever whenever we talked about that over the summer at the retreat.
Yeah, because I feel like I shouldn't buy. One of my parents should gift it to me, and my dad did. And
Yeah.
it's been the most meaningful thing that I feel like. Now, I love things, you know, I love a little purse and I love flowers. Love flowers. But that Bible, it changed my life. I went on a spiritual journey, and I think that's why I was able to do all the things that I'm doing, that I did, and that I'm going to continue to do.
Yeah. And I know I said I would share offline, but since you're bringing the Bible up and how it's helped shape your journey, the part when you talked about the relationship that you weren't supposed to be in, it became very dark and you lost yourself. And as soon as you left it, doors began to open up, blessings began to flow.
It was like it's raining for years, and the sun just came out.
And sometimes we just do things that halt our blessings. Like, I feel like when I lived in Philadelphia, my time expired before I got pregnant. And like, it was dark. And I call that season the dark season, the dark years. And I think it was Tavia, and I've said this before, it was Tavia who made me look up and realize that God is trying to move me. But I was so angry with him and so not who I am that I was stuck.
Yeah.
And once I picked up and came over to Pittsburgh, I mean, what's that one song? The windows of blessings will open up and pour out a blessing so much that you don't have room to receive.
It. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they do. They pour out. I have a song by Jacqueline, the gospel singer.
Jacqueline Carr.
Yeah. Jacqueline Carr. And she has a song called Major. And I love the live version. And she just says it like, she's like, in the song, she's like, I can't explain it, but I know that it's major. Where she's saying like she knew something good was coming. And it's a feeling that if you say it to people, they because it's a feeling. Mm-hmm. And you can't explain how good it feels. And I listen to that song now and I'll just start crying immediately. Because I couldn't explain it. And God, when you feel like you move in and you stand in one place, you have to check your surroundings. You have to.
Yeah. So with that being said, this is the opportunity that you can pour into other parents. And I don't know if you feel like you've already said it, so you're good, but I want to give you an opportunity to share any encouraging or inspirational words that moms, dads, people who are caregiving, whatever, might want to hear from
you. My biggest thing that I say is basically like, you got to go through to get through. You don't get to skip your steps. You got to go through it. Sometimes it seems like it's dark, and sometimes we have to go through those things to appreciate good things. Sometimes we had it and didn't appreciate it, so God take it from us and got to take us through some things, so then when we get it the next time, we do it right. But when you get the next opportunity, you have to do it right. You have to capitalize on opportunity, no matter what that is. Your blessings in a spiritual way, in a monetary way, in your finances. You have to capitalize off of opportunity when those things are placed in front of you. And there's no such thing as I can't. We don't get to sell out because we're parents. It's hard, but we're their superheroes. How we want them to turn out sometimes is basically what we're showing them. So keep pushing, cry, and take that 20 minutes for yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom. Listeners, if this is not one that you download, you need to second guess yourself and go ahead and download this episode. Actually, you know what? Pause it right now. Click download. Share it with your friends, because although we are just having a conversation, there is absolutely ministry in this episode. So, Shauntae, what is next for you, and how can our listeners connect with you?
Next for me, I want to continue to thrive and, make a difference in my community, continue to be voice of reasoning for our kids, this new generation that's coming up, because it's not going to change with us. It's going to start with them. And following wherever God is taking me, I am going, and I ain't asking no questions.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I know I've said it multiple times, but truly, you are a gem. I'm very, very glad that we have the opportunity to work together, because the work that we do, whether anybody wants to put a name on it or not, it is ministry. And you are in position to do what you have to do to the people that interact with you. So I'm very grateful that I get to watch it. I'm very grateful that I get to work with you. And I'm thankful that you decided to come on Nailed It Motherhood podcast and share your story with our listeners. It is a very critical story, and I hope that people took from it what they needed to take from it so that they can thrive. So, Shauntae, I have a couple more questions for you before you leave us today. And the first question, is parenting hard?
Yes.
Yeah, just boom. But is it worth it?
Hard. It ain't easy. It is. Oh. It is hard.
And I think that's the first thing you said when you came to the mic too. Yes. Is it worth it? Is it worth it, Shauntae?
It's worth it. It absolutely is worth it. I'm considering having more children.
Yes, honey. That's awesome. And you will do great this time around, just as you did before.
I think I'll be so much better.
Yes. I mean, the years of experience. Yes.
Yes.
Well, what do you want to proudly tell our guests today?
That this mama is nailing it.
Nailing it. Did y'all hear that? This is where my sister would say, Shauntae Myrick is nailing it. Well, if you like this episode, listeners, and you want to hear more personal parenting stories, subscribe to our social media, Nailed It Motherhood Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and our new YouTube page. And please don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. We also have a website, naileditmotherhood.com, for your one-stop shop about our podcast, and hopefully a Nailed It online store coming soon where we can just scream it. This mama is nailing it. Don't forget, you can be a guest on the podcast by completing a guest application, because after all, you might have a recipe nobody wrote down. The link is in the bio. We welcome your questions, comments, and ideas, and we certainly hope to keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep on doing what it is you do. Bye.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
You're listening to Nailed It Motherhood Podcast.